Hello, and thank you for taking the time to review this presentation about Allen Chase Enterprises, Inc. and our work with Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. During this program, I will refer to Chase Enterprises as simply Chase and the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation as simply PennDOT. We, at Chase, have been awarded contracts to provide the herbicide applications to state highways in various areas in the state of Pennsylvania. This training program was developed to orient you as a new employee of this spraying program. It will introduce you to some of the PennDOT and Chase operating systems and procedures. This program is only the first step in your training to provide this work and is only intended to give you an introductory understanding of some of the parts and pieces and procedures related to this work. This presentation will cover Chase Enterprises, Inc. and what our role as the contractor is to this project, and we will discuss the PennDOT roadside herbicide program, what responsibilities PennDOT has in this program, as well as the responsibilities of you, the employee. We will cover parts of PennDOT Publication 23 and Publication 213 that are both relate heavily to this work. We will also discuss the equipment used and your role as a Chase Enterprises applicator. Chase Enterprises Incorporated, officially known as Allen Chase Enterprises Incorporated, is a private corporation based in Oswego, New York. We provide herbicide applications in numerous forms to commercial, industrial, and municipal clients throughout New York State and Pennsylvania. Our herbicide services include roadside vegetation control, aquatic weed control, railroad, noxious and invasive species control, and so on. We provide these services on locations such as roadsides, rivers, airports, wastewater treatment facilities, communication towers, electricity generation stations, and so on. Our work in Pennsylvania at this time is limited to only roadside spraying for the PennDOT. Who is PennDOT? PennDOT is the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. They are responsible for the operation and maintenance of all of Pennsylvania's state highways. Their vegetation management is responsible for more than 150,000 acres of roadside vegetation growth. PennDOT has developed various systems that provide a means to optimizing service to the road user while providing a management framework that makes the system practical to implement and evaluate. There are a number of programs used to manage vegetation on these roadways. Herbicide applications are only one facet of a broad-based vegetation management program. The three primary vegetation management programs that PennDOT uses are mowing, tree trimming, and the work we'll be doing, herbicide spraying. PennDOT does not have enough personnel, or do they have enough equipment to maintain all highways themselves. For this reason, it is common for districts within the state to subcontract some or all of this type of work to independent contractors like ourselves. Our contract with PennDOT will be almost entirely roadside spraying, usually from a truck-mounted sprayer working off the shoulder of a highway. There are a number of specific spraying programs that we will go over later. These contracts with PennDOT for herbicide spraying are for 1 year but extendable for up to 5 years with satisfactory performance. PennDOT is divided into districts or regions as shown here. Each region may handle vegetation control slightly different. Each determines what percentage, if any, they will contract out to independent subcontractors. Shown here with arrows are districts 6 and 3. These two districts are currently the only districts we are providing herbicide spraying work for. This is a close-up of District 3. District 3 is located in northern central PA and is made up of 9 counties. Our work here will include 3 to 4 crews operating in cooperation with PennDOT employees, also doing herbicide spraying. The PennDOT main office for District 3 is located in Montoursville, shown here in red. District 6 is located in the southeastern PA and is made up of 5 counties surrounding the city of Philadelphia. Our work here will include 4 crews providing herbicide spraying throughout the district. The PennDOT main office for District 6 is located in King of Prussia, PA. Each district has a roadside specialist that is responsible for all vegetation maintenance operations within their district, including herbicide work. All of our work will be conducted under the direction of the district roadside specialist. This person is our primary point of contact for operations within our scope of work. The roadside specialist for District 3 is Lyndon Mink, and for District 6 is Darren Adamos. The roadside specialist or his designee will direct daily assignments of our herbicide program. Under the terms of the contract, PennDOT will supply all herbicides used on this program. The roadside specialist will determine what herbicide mixes will be used and dispense these herbicides to us as needed throughout the term of the contract. PennDOT has overall control for the implementation and management of the roadside herbicide program, and our work will be under their direction. As the contractor, we provide the skilled labor force and all equipment necessary to provide roadside herbicide treatments to PennDOT standards. The equipment varies slightly from one district to another based on each district's individual needs. We are responsible to provide supervision to our staff and documentation through daily reports of all herbicide treatments provided. Let's talk for a few minutes about why this work is conducted. There are many reasons for these programs, but the clear primary reason is safety. Much of our work will be conducted in order to improve line of sight for motorists traveling the highway. Their visibility of signs, oncoming traffic, intersections, sight around curves, and roadside hazards are all improved with a good roadside vegetation control program. Although motorist safety may be the biggest reason to conduct this type of work, it is not the only reason. This program also improves utility, economy, and beauty of the roadside areas. Utility is provided by stabilizing road shoulders and soils and preventing erosion, and by growing and encouraging desirable vegetation in place of that of undesirable and future problem vegetation. Economy is provided by the selection of vegetation such as crown vetch, which needs no mowing or fertilization, or through the application of growth regulating products which reduce the mowing frequency required. Beauty is provided by establishing a green and well-maintained turf and encouraging the growth of other native plants. When considering methods of controlling vegetation on over 150,000 acres of right-of-way, several factors must be reviewed. Safety is always a primary factor. Although all vegetation programs have some risk versus benefits, it is well established that the use of herbicides can be safer than other methods of vegetation control. Reduced emission release as well as a reduced exposure of maintenance vehicles on the right-of-way are the primary factors improved with herbicide treatments. Cost effectiveness of a program is another important consideration. When addressing a job of this scale, the cost versus return on investment must be considered. Herbicides, especially new technologies, are well established as having one of the best return on investments of all vegetation control methods. Based on all the facts and available data, and consistent with management practices nationwide, the economic impact and dangers imminent to the elimination of herbicides appear to be far greater risk than the use of herbicides themselves. From time to time, you may encounter persons objective to the use of herbicides for vegetation control. The reason herbicides are used by PennDOT is described in their publication 23, Chapter 13, and are important for you to understand when working on this project. Publication 23 is available online, and it includes the following statement from PennDOT regarding the use of herbicides. I will read this to you over the next several slides. PennDOT conducts annual herbicide programs to economically and effectively manage roadside vegetation within each county. All motorists and highway frontage residents are exposed to the Department's roadside vegetation management practices. It is prudent, therefore, that all people impacted by this program understand the Department's problems, herbicide policies, and practices relative to roadside vegetation management. PennDOT has been using herbicides since 1948, primarily because of the financial advantages and safety effectiveness of these chemicals have provided. Generally, herbicide spraying accounts for less than 25% of PennDOT's total vegetation management program and is based upon legal, moral, administrative, and financial dictates. Act Number 74, the Noxious Weed Law, identifies Canada thistle, Johnson grass, multifloral rose, and marijuana as weeds which must be controlled from spreading and polluting adjacent land. The Department is morally obligated to control or destroy poison ivy, ragweed, and other roadside vegetation which adversely affect thousands of motorists and roadside tenants. Administratively, it is the Department's policy to conduct a herbicide application program each year along segments of the state highway system in order to eradicate or control undesirable vegetation and to reduce expensive roadside mowing and brushing activities. Our employees' lost time accidents are reduced in direct proportion to the effectiveness of a herbicide program which controls poison ivy, ragweed, and other noxious and irritating vegetation. Financially, there is an enormous savings through the utilization of herbicides as compared to performing these vegetative management operations with hand labor, mechanized equipment, or by other means. The Department's policy regarding herbicides is to refrain from the use of hazardous or restricted use materials. All chemicals must be approved for use by the Environmental Protection Agency and applied by certified applicators approved and licensed as required by the Pennsylvania Pesticide Act. Our program is carefully planned and monitored to assure the most effective and environmentally safe results. The safety of pesticide chemicals are given additional credence by the intense research and laboratory tests required by the EPA prior to approval for the market. The Department also retains a research contract with Penn State University's College of Agriculture for the purpose of evaluating our overall management practices and herbicide screening. In addition to the evaluation concerning pesticides, they are also examining the feasibility of using low-maintenance grasses and/or wildflowers along the roadways in order to minimize the need for chemical control. The management of vegetation along Pennsylvania's highways is a diverse and sizable task, accomplished in constant view and scrutiny of the public. With due respect to the safety of the traveler as well as the safety of all of our citizens, the Department of Transportation seeks understanding and support for this program. This concludes the PennDOT policy statement contained in Publication 23. You can use this as a resource if you find yourself required to answer questions regarding the use of herbicides on the PennDOT right-of-ways. Even with all of that said, some people at times will not appreciate the work we do. It is very important when faced with these situations to be respectful and empathetic. If questioned about the work you are doing, you should explain it in basic detail and refer them to the PennDOT website or roadside specialist for more information. If they wish to speak to someone regarding this work immediately, refer them to your supervisor. Many citizen complaints can be mitigated by simply listening to their complaint and empathetically explaining what we are doing and why. Never argue with or otherwise engage a citizen regarding any work we are conducting. Contact your supervisor for further direction if you find yourself in this situation. Delays in reporting a complaint aggravates the complainant and diminishes the ability to secure correct information or evidence about it. Always report any complaints quickly to your supervisor. As you heard in the herbicide use statement, all personnel applying herbicides under this program must be certified applicators. Herbicide technicians are not recognized by PennDOT as being capable of applying pesticides without on-site direct supervision of an applicator. All herbicides must be used in accordance with the label instructions. We remind you that the misuse of herbicide materials is a violation of state and federal law, and it places the applicator, supervisor, contractor, and PennDOT in a position for a lawsuit and jeopardizes the entire PennDOT pesticide program. Always apply pesticides under labeled directions. It is valuable to review some basic rules to remember before applying herbicides to the roadside. As you know, the cardinal rule in herbicide applications is read the label. Don't violate the excuse me. Do not violate any of the instructions. Doing so would lead to claims for improper use. If there is a question regarding the proposed use of a pesticide, always consult the district roadside specialist before any applications are made. They are the authority on issues such as the application rates and techniques, of course, as the label allows. Prior to the application of any herbicides, you must calibrate your equipment. This is required to assure the proper application rate for the area and vegetation treated is achieved. Each piece of equipment must be calibrated weekly or sometimes more frequently, depending on spraying activities. Persons with known issues of hypersensitivity or herbicides are Persons with known issues of hypersensitivity to herbicides are contained in the hypersensitivity register. Before applications are made, ensure persons on this list have received the appropriate notifications. For all pesticide applications, but especially broadcast foliage, extreme care must be exercised as many adjacent agricultural crops and other vegetation are sensitive to these herbicides. There are some instances where we would never spray. When wind exceeds 10 miles per hour, or when debris is being blown around, we would not spray. We will never spray near homes, gardens, flower beds, or lawns. Anytime you encounter an area that a property owner is maintaining, you should not spray. This includes guardrails, signs in mowed lawns, flower beds around signposts. Any area where a property owner is maintaining that, we do not want to spray any vegetation along that area. We also don't spray within populated towns and villages where there are residential or commercial structures. We also never spray beyond the right-of-way. When in doubt, review this with a roadside specialist. The herbicide treatments cannot be applied in the rain or shortly before the rain, especially the bare ground program. Rain will wash these herbicides off the intended areas and downstream to non-intended areas. This is often a violation of the label and can lead to liability. PennDOT policies call for no spraying 1 hour before predicted rain and no spraying for 1 hour after the rain has stopped. If faced with a surprise rain shower, stop spraying immediately and contact your supervisor for guidance. Spraying along agricultural fields poses an additional hazard for our operations. Some of the products we use can be catastrophic to agricultural crops, and extreme care needs to be taken when spraying near these areas. Even a slight wind and drift can have significant and adverse effects on cropland, which could leave us liable for these damages. Whenever in doubt as to whether you should spray in a particular area, always stop and consider all options. If there is a chance of drift into these fields especially, do not spray. If you are unsure what to do, call your supervisor and review what the appropriate actions could be. In most all cases, we will not spray where a risk of unintended damage exists. PennDOT's herbicide programs are performed by both independent contractors like us and PennDOT crews that use similar equipment and certifications. In our districts, applications are made by both subcontractors and PennDOT using contractor equipment and PennDOT equipment. The spraying program is made up of 6 different general categories. These categories were developed with different purposes and to create a method of cost tracking across different programs. Each type of spraying has an individual cost code associated with it. The 6 spray categories are grass and growth control, bare ground, broadleaf weed, brush and tree trimming, side trimming, and basal bark. Again, the 6 spraying programs use 5 cost codes. Each program has specific objectives that we'll go over in a moment. The cost codes are as follows. For the grass growth and height control, cost code is 7711-03. The bare ground program, the cost code is 7712. For the broadleaf weed and thistle control, the cost code is 7713. For the brush and tree growth control, the cost code again is 7713. We will talk later about the similarities between these two programs and why they share the same cost code. And for the chemical side trimming, the code is 7714, and with the basil bark, it's 7715. It's important to at least be familiar with these codes, as sometimes the roadside specialist will refer to one program or another by its cost code and not necessarily by its name. The grass growth and height control is also referred to as the plant growth regulator program, or the PGR program. A combination of products are applied to the roadside turf in the spring, usually before or very soon after the first mowing starts. This treatment prevents the formation of grass seed heads and reduces leaf growth. The mixture must contain herbicides to control broadleaf weeds also, because the treated grass is much less vigorous and could be overwhelmed by untreated weeds. This program is used in areas that are difficult to mow or to reduce the mowing cycle in the spring. This is a post-emergent foliar application. The primary objectives to this herbicide spraying is to reduce or replace mowing requirements. It also conserves petroleum products by reducing mowing cycles and the frequency of conflict between mowing equipment and highway traffic. These treatments will typically be made using truck-mounted sprayers along the roadsides. Adherence to label instructions is particularly important when using these relatively new, very selective herbicide products to assure quality results. Because this program often targets all the turf to be mowed in a given area, the spray pattern must cover from the edge of the mow line in one single pass. This treatment will often extend 20 to 30 feet horizontally from the spray vehicle. Scheduling is complex in districts where PGR programs are used. The rule of thumb for scheduling a PGR application is to treat the turf when it looks the way you want it to look. If you are using a PGR to prevent seed heads, you need to make the application in early to mid-May depending on the spring. This usually means the bare ground program will still be underway. Many districts deal with these crunch times by having 2 types of spray vehicles per contract. One high capacity with a large tank and a smaller vehicle with the same capabilities but easier to use for specialized applications. In a PGR scenario, the high capacity vehicles can be diverted to treat a lot of limited access roadway turf in a short time, while the small vehicles continue with the bare ground program. Let's talk about the bare ground program. The bare ground program is applied to guardrail and shoulder areas to maintain an area free of vegetation. A mixture of herbicides is used to provide a non-selective application that will control existing vegetation and prevent weed growth throughout the season. The mixture of products provides both pre-emergence and post-emergence activity and targets both the existing foliage and germinating plants. Remember, herbicides used for bare ground work are non-selective and will kill nearly all vegetation present. Examples of herbicides used would be Roundup. The specific herbicides will be selected by the district roadside specialist based on their ability to work effectively and control or prevent any vegetation from growing in the targeted area. The target for the bare ground program is very constrained. It is limited to shoulders, guide rails, and islands and barriers where any vegetation is undesirable. Shoulder and guide rails are treated with a fixed position spray nozzle mounted low on the spray vehicle, covering 2 to 4 feet per nozzle at the most. Traffic islands are usually treated with a handgun. The spring application season begins with the bare ground program. It makes more sense to prevent plant growth under guardrails than to control existing weeds. The common rule for spring bare ground work is when the ground temperature reaches 50 degrees, it is time to start spraying. This can be easily evidenced by the blooming of the forsythia plant as shown here. The blooming of this plant indicates the ground is warm enough for plants to begin germination and growth, and therefore it is time to begin the bare ground treatments. Plants, whether dead or alive, will affect the flow of water from the roadway across the shoulders, so it is always better to prevent them than to treat them after they have grown. Plants also encourage the accumulation of anti-skid and other small aggregates and debris, which also interferes with the movement of water across the shoulder. For all of these reasons, the bare ground program will always start early before vegetation starts to grow. It's valuable to review sometimes not to spray, especially when talking about bare ground treatments. A bare ground treatment is very effective for its intended purpose. However, it has some serious complications that we need to consider. Extreme care must be given when spraying near or around trees, shrubs, or lawns where the spray material may penetrate the soil and affect the root system of undesirable plants, or where rainwater may flush the treated area and move the herbicide onto desirable plants or turf. You also want to be careful using a bare ground treatment where there is the potential for soil erosion, or where soil erosion is taking place. In these examples, the benefits of applying a bare ground herbicide may be far outweighed by the negative impacts such an application may have. When using a bare ground treatment, use extreme caution, and when in doubt, don't spray. The broadleaf weed and thistle program is used to selectively control certain weeds that tend to grow faster and taller than the desirable vegetation around them. Work in this category may include spraying turf areas to reduce the mowing frequency required, or removing dense, tall vegetation while leaving the lower grassy undergrowth for erosion control. Certain herbicides have been developed to selectively control these broadleaf weeds while leaving others uninjured. The primary weeds to be treated include Canada thistle, Johnson grass, multifloral rose, marijuana, and other noxious weeds. This work is performed using a variety of application techniques selected based on the terrain to be treated. The selective broadleaf spraying program is intended to control the noxious weeds while maintaining the desirable vegetation in the applied area. When treating weeds and turf, this program is directed at all the turf and is extensive in coverage. Where a PGA program is used, the program can be done during the same application. The effective window for a selective weed program extends from mid-May until at least the time of killing frosts, even later in some species. The season for brush control is shorter. It starts later and ends as the leaves begin to change color. This coincides well with the time available at the completion of the bare ground program in late May, early June, and the beginning of the side trimming program in mid-August. The next program we talk about is the brush and tree growth program. This is also a selective program, very much like the broadleaf weed program. Although the broadleaf weed program and brush program do have two distinct objectives, one controlling non-woody broadleaf weeds and the other controlling brush, they are very closely related. Because of this similarity in applications and purpose, the two applications share the same PennDOT cost code and are often even applied together. Broadleaf weeds and turf, as well as brush, can be effectively treated with the same mixture and therefore typically performed together. For this reason, they both share the same cost code. Where brush is the target, this program is intended to be preventive. The targeted brush should be small and early in the encroachment process. Although this program would be very effective in killing brush, it is not intended for use as a clearance program. Any spraying that renders large bushes or small trees and branches and leaves dead or browned out typically draws the most public criticism. It is important to note that the extra care should be taken to properly clean tanks before utilizing selective herbicides like these, especially when previous treatments included a bare ground program. Pennsylvania is 60% forested, and roadsides are continually being invaded by forest tree growth. Controlling this invading forest through manual tree trimming and removal operations is 5 to 10 times more costly than by the use of herbicides. Side trimming is conducted to keep encroachment trees and branches away from the road edge. This extends the periods between needed manual tree trimming and improves traffic visibility around corners, at intersections, and of signs and traffic markings. These applications will be performed primarily by truck-mounted sprayer, as shown in this photo. Although we have not talked about herbicides in this program, when discussing side trimming, it's important to understand one herbicide that is commonly used by the PennDOT. The typical herbicide used for side trimming in PA is krenite. So much so that commonly the side trimming program is referred to as the krenite program. When applied in late summer, before the leaves turn color, the herbicide product krenite, active ingredient phosamine, will cause a slow, less noticeable onset of symptoms. The application of phosamine permits herbicide penetration of the buds and prevents the full development of leaves the following spring. Leaves that are present during the late summer application are generally only slightly discolored, therefore the brownout condition does not occur to generate public criticism. The leafless branches which occur the following spring are generally not objectionable, or in most cases not obvious to the motoring public. Phosamine does not move very far within the plant from where it is applied, so only the side of the treated plant facing the road is affected. It is critical on the secondary roads because the majority of a tree canopy might be off the right-of-way. The use of a phosamine provides a way to affect only the canopy encroaching upon the right-of-way. One of the factors determining the side trimming of the krenite program is minimizing the symptoms of the applications. Despite the slow development of symptoms after krenite treatment, symptoms do develop, and krenite treatments are usually targeted higher and farther than selective program treatments. Therefore, the start of the program is delayed until mid-August so that the symptoms blend with the natural onset of the fall color. Ground application equipment is ideally suited for phosamine side trimming with limited forest invasion control, as you can see in this picture. The basal bark application is an application of herbicides diluted in an oil carrier to completely circle the base of a tree. Basal or low volume foliar treatments is usable under undesirable or individual or scattered clumps of plants that are developing on the roadside areas or invading within the 30 feet of roadway. Pioneer products such as birch, locust, and sumac are easily controlled and should be treated before they attain heights exceeding 10 feet. These areas treated can include upcut slopes extending 30 to 50 feet from the ditch line and areas behind the guardrail and down full slopes the same distance. The narrower the shoulder and the steeper the fill, the nearer the traffic will be to the encroaching forest vegetation, and therefore the wider the treatment area required. Unlike most other application methods used in this project, these applications will be done primarily on foot using backpacks or spray or hose reels. Basal bark treatments can be done nearly any time of year. At PennDOT, this is usually reserved for the late season after side trimming has been completed. You will start basal bark treatment, and it is ideally suited for areas that you were not able to reach with conventional truck-mounted sprayers, such as areas around bridges, streams, or other limited access areas and treatment will begin in mid-September and extend through the end of October or longer. This shows a calendar of herbicide treatments and when they are recommended to be applied. A district's herbicide program begins in early April and runs through late October or even November. It is scheduled so that the intended roads are treated with the minimum number of spray vehicles working nearly continuously through the season. The program is easiest to administer when the spray crews are able to concentrate on one program at a time, moving from one county to the next. Once that program is complete, they move on to the next program. This is not always possible as conditions change with weather and the department's needs change throughout the season. Applicators can expect to work full-time 40 to 50 hours per week from the beginning of the season clear through to the end. As you can see here, each program overlaps the next slightly, which will create periods of time, crunch times, that multiple programs are scheduled to occur simultaneously. These factors will be taken into account as the program runs through the summer, and changes will be made to try to complete each of these programs on time. One complication that can apply to all of the different spray programs that we talked about above is spraying at night. In certain situations, especially on heavily used limited access highways around Philadelphia, night spraying may be necessary. Night spraying is never an ideal situation as the difficulty at night is significant. The decreased visibility can be a hindrance to spraying operations and an additional safety hazard for crews and motorists. This spraying is sometimes necessary because of the feasibility of accessing these highways during the day is counterproductive due to traffic congestion. Keep in mind, all of the spray programs that we've talked about above are regulated by label conditions. Although the PennDOT decides what herbicides to use and when, you are ultimately responsible for their correct application. Always review the product label and follow the label directions. Now that we've talked about the different spraying programs that PennDOT will use, we'll talk briefly about the different types of equipment that we will utilize to apply those products. There are several different types of spray trucks and crew complements that will be used. Each district has slightly different needs and therefore slightly different equipment requirements. We will go over the primary vehicles used in each district and discuss the main components for each. The primary vehicles that we will use are a large spray truck, a small spray truck, a basal bark or low volume spray truck, and a shadow vehicle. The large spray truck will typically consist of a medium-sized truck, under 26,000 gross vehicle weight rating, equipped with approximately a 1,000-gallon tank. This truck will be used for mostly higher volume highway roadside treatments along interstates and highways. This truck will be manned with either two people, a separate certified applicator and driver, or one person acting as a combination driver-applicator in one. The type of applications performed will vary based on the time of season, area being applied, and needs identified by the roadside manager. In most all instances, a shadow truck will be required with a separate shadow truck operator to follow behind, giving approaching traffic advanced warning. More information on the shadow trucks will be covered later in this presentation. If two people are utilized in the large spray truck, the certified pesticide applicator is the crew leader. Another variation of the large spray truck is the boom truck. Although this is not used regularly, it can be used from time to time to reach either tall vegetation or long distances off the side of the highway. Operation of this truck will always be done with a truck driver and herbicide boom operator. Boom truck trucks will typically be accompanied by shadow trucks as well. The small spray truck is equipped with a smaller tank than the large spray trucks. This truck typically carries 200 to 500 gallons. It is used for either secondary highways or sometimes smaller areas such as on and off ramps, asphalt medians, rest areas, or other small or hard to access spots. The small spray truck is usually equipped with a similar nozzle complement, hose reels, and so on, just as the large spray truck does. If more than one person is working in this vehicle, the certified pesticide applicator is the team leader. The basal or backpack truck, or sometimes referred to as the low volume truck, is a vehicle appropriately labeled which can carry the necessary equipment for hand or backpack work. This may include items such as a small tank, hose reel, backpack, application wands, pesticide storage containers, granular spreaders, personal protective equipment, and so on. And again, if more than one person is working in this vehicle, the certified pesticide applicator is the team leader. A shadow vehicle is defined as a vehicle positioned in the activity area in the advance of a work vehicle to provide information to approaching drivers or protection for the workers or work vehicle. In our case, a shadow vehicle will be required for much of our application work. At times and on certain freeways, 2 shadow vehicles may be required per work vehicle. The type and size of the shadow vehicle required, and even if a shadow vehicle is required, is described in Part A 300 of Publication 213. We will describe our shadow vehicles as small and large for simplification of describing each. The driver of any shadow vehicle truck must possess a valid driver's license for the vehicle being operated. They report to the certified pesticide applicator they are working with. A small shadow truck is any vehicle equipped with a minimum 30-inch by 60-inch aero board that is used to notify oncoming traffic of the work vehicle ahead. The small shadow truck is not allowed to be used on freeways. It is only allowed to be used on secondary roads with speed limits under 55. A large shadow truck, sometimes called a crash truck or TMA, differs from the small shadow truck in that it has a truck-mounted attenuator or crash barricade. The large shadow trucks are required when working along an expressway or freeway. This vehicle must be large enough to meet the TMA manufacturer's minimum weight specifications to handle the TMA. The aero board on a large shadow truck is 4 foot by 8 foot versus the 30 inches by 60 inches required on the small shadow vehicles. The annuator itself must meet certain other specifications for use on freeways and expressways. See Publication 213, PATA 600 series. Typically, when working on the right side of an expressway or freeway with no roadway encroachment, 1 large shadow truck with a TMA is sufficient. However, for left shoulder applications, which is around 4 feet in width, at least 2 shadow trucks with TMAs are required. A large shadow truck with a trailer-mounted TMA is considered equivalent and is acceptable as a large shadow truck with TMA. These units are trucks large enough to meet the requirements of the TMA. They have enough gross vehicle weight rating and are loaded to that minimum weight prescribed by the TMA manufacturer and have a TMA trailer properly fastened behind them. A TMA trailer is a special purpose built device that attaches to the host truck in a way as to prevent it from jackknifing during a collision. Advantages of this device are that the host vehicle can be utilized for multiple purposes by simply unhooking a trailer. For example, a small flatbed truck like an F450 could be utilized as a small shadow truck when equipped with an aero board, and by hooking up a TMA trailer behind it and loading the truck to the prescribed weight, it becomes an acceptable large shadow truck. If the truck is equipped with a large 4x8 aero board, then no further modifications would be required. The larger aero board can also be used for the small shadow truck application but the small arrow board cannot be used for large shadow truck applications. For this reason, a truck used for both small and large application will typically have a large board permanently attached. Where, when, and what type and how many shadow trucks are required is all dictated by Pennsylvania DOT Publication 213, PATA 600, 601, 602, and so on. The roadside specialist will be our authority and final say as to questions relating to shadow truck use. In most instances, when operating a large spray truck, some type of shadow vehicle will be required. When operating a small spray truck, a shadow vehicle may or may not be required, depending on the type and location of the application. The driver of the shadow vehicle does not require any specific herbicide licensing, but must possess the class of driver's license necessary for the vehicle driven. Drivers of shadow vehicles report to the herbicide applicator they are working with. All herbicides used in these hourly contracts are supplied by PennDOT and stored at PennDOT garages. These herbicides will be distributed to us for use as needed during the season. When in our possession, herbicides should be locked in an approved cabinet and handled using the same standards applicable for all typical pesticide storage. As a reminder, a person may not use, handle, transport, store, display, or distribute a pesticide in a manner that is inconsistent with its label. Pesticides should be stored in an enclosed, heated building with a minimum temperature of 40 degrees Fahrenheit, not subject to water dampness or other adverse conditions. Area must be completely enclosed and locked. Only authorized individuals shall be permitted to sign out pesticide materials. These individuals must be certified applicators and generally include the district roadside specialist and/or designated county personnel.